Hello and welcome to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital. My name is Keaton Shah and I'm very pleased to be joining you this morning and for your presence as we start a brand new day here in Trinidad and Tobago. We're in that season of Saharan dust coupled with bushfire smoke, so I urge everybody to take their precautions, especially when coming into Port of Spain this morning. The visibility across the Beetham is not that great. I suppose following a bushfire that started yesterday afternoon, it seems to have not died down at all. But we do have a packed program this morning, and let me not fail in introducing my first guest this morning. He is the Member of Parliament for Chaguanas West to speak about a situation that is developing, and this is with respect to the repatriation of citizens who are stuck in ISIS concentration camps in Syria and Iraq. So let me welcome Mr. Dinesh Rambali. Good morning, sir, and welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning, Keaton. Good morning to your viewers and listeners. At the outset, I want to apologize for my voice this morning because I am pretty much under the weather. So I will try to participate as best as I can. Thank you for the welcome.
Well, Mr. Rambali, I want to thank you very much for joining us. And nonetheless, I know that being under the weather and still waking up so early in itself is a challenge, and I'm very much grateful for the opportunity and for the conversation. But following your article, it was actually a column that was published in the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday on Monday, the 10th of April. Starting first, you have been advocating very strongly for the timely repatriation of citizens stuck in Iraq and Syria. Maybe you've also specifically mentioned the children, suggesting that some innocents that were born into this, who've only known anger, who've possibly only known hatred and grew up in radicalization, well, it's time to bring them back home. You also alluded to the story that was mentioned of an 8-year-old boy who has not been able to access education following his arrival here in TNT with his mother from Turkey. But with all these factors in mind, how are you able to assume, given the fact that radicalization, anger, hatred is all these children have known, how are you able to assume that we can successfully reintegrate them back into society here in Trinidad and Tobago?
Keaton, thank you for your observations and, of course, your question. I have been advocating in this matter because I deem it, and I think internationally it is deemed as a humanitarian crisis. This is really a humanitarian effort that a lot of countries are engaging in seeking to repatriate its citizens. I, of course, have singled out the children because I am of the view that the evils of the parents should not be visited upon the innocent children. I am saying that if it is as a society, we have certain rights and freedoms. And Trinidad and Tobago, as most people will know, we have signed on to certain conventions, namely the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the Geneva Convention, which is 1951. You have the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights, etc. We also have, when ISIS came to the forefront and was threatening the world on a huge scale, you had Trinidad and Tobago's accession to the UN Security Council Resolution 2178. What countries accepted when they acceded to that resolution was that they were combating extreme violence. And so it is called CVE, countering violent extremism. And therefore, it contemplated that there may come a time when the measures put in place, the harsh measures, necessary measures, but accepted to be harsh in treating with these terrorist fighters, that you would try to now have a situation where you would try to reintegrate those in society. And if I remember correctly, it is clause 13 of that particular resolution. Other countries have engaged in this process, so Trinidad and Tobago is not unique in that respect. I have indicated that for me, the fundamental focus where we need to place the most amount of attention is what are the needs and risks of children and other individuals who are not prosecuted for crimes, that they may have committed while in a conflict zone. It may be Syria, Iraq, Turkey, as the case may be. And therefore, we have to determine, do they pose a risk, a security risk to the community? It has to be assessed on a case-by-case basis. We have to weigh national security concerns, but that has to be weighed against international human rights.
Mr. Ramali, if I may just stop you on that particular point, we have to vet on a case-by-case basis. Now, on that particular issue, I'm not entirely sure as to how aware every citizen is of the fact that there are those who were in Iraq and Syria and perhaps part of ISIS, whether or not they're innocent, returning to Tobago when they have been returning for quite some time. Now, because there has been no legal framework in place and nothing as such that has been detailed, whether it be from the Ministry of National Security or the Office of the Attorney General, to mitigate risk to national security due to radicalization, is it that before we even start this repatriation and reintegration process, we've already failed, or are we doomed to fail, given that there have been citizens who perhaps are radicalized that have been returning for some time?
And Keaton, again, thank you for that observation and question, of course. I agree. We are not in a position to determine the extent of the radicalization that has taken place. But the fact remains that we owe some duty to these children that are languishing out in the conflict zones. And this is the reason why the onus is on the government. And this is not a political statement. This is much bigger than any political party. This is not a political issue. This is a humanitarian effort. This is why I have asked openly. Questions have been posed, and I suspect it will come up at the appropriate time in the parliament for response. But in the public domain, I continue to ask the question, what type of framework could be used to facilitate these children's healthy and safe reintegration? And other countries have been able to do it. It cannot be done alone. This is not about Dinesh Rambalay. It is not about Minister Amy Brown. It is not about any political party. It is about all hands on deck. We have international agencies, particularly human rights groups. You also have the United States. You have the United Nations. Everybody came on board as recent as last week, Wednesday, just prior to the Easter weekend, in Canada, where they repatriated some 19, I believe it was 13 children and 6 females. But it is something that we have to engage in, because globally, all of the studies show that, and the experts say, this is a global statement, that the longer these children remain in the conflict zones and they are not repatriated, the risk is much bigger to national security, because they will become radicalized, and that is another ISIS generation in waiting. So this is Trinidad and Tobago. I am a citizen of Trinidad and Tobago. Yes, I'm a member of parliament. But as a citizen, I am concerned that whether we accept it or not, some of these persons have actually returned to Trinidad and Tobago. Some are due to be deported because the Kurdish forces, Rojava and other entities out in Syria, are not going to allow these detention camps to just remain in existence for an indefinite period of time. They are going to start taking steps of their own.
Well, Mr. Ramali,
yes.
In repatriating children to Tobago, if given the current state of affairs here in TNT, and if we were to take a microscopic view, given the level of crime and the rising violence within society, if these children have been stuck in concentration camps in Iraq and Syria, and they're susceptible to abuse or even radicalization, again, given the current state of affairs, who's to say that things are going to be any better for them coming back to TNT?
No, but Keaton, you're speculating on the opposite side of the spectrum. I am detailing what I am saying with a rationale, with some facts. This is a global issue. This is not limited to Trinidad and Tobago. Is it that Trinidad and Tobago government and people of Trinidad and Tobago are saying that there are no circumstances whatsoever that we can help our own nationals and the children of our nationals out in Syria? Is that as a society that we are saying? I am not in a position. This is why we need all hands on deck. This is why the government has to put in a framework. And the longer it takes to put in a framework to attempt the reintegration of our children in our society, those who are out in the conflict zones, it is the greater risk that will be posed to us. Are we going to sit down and bury our heads in the sand? Or are we going to take a position that, look, this is a crisis that actually exists. This is a crisis that we have to meet head on. This is a crisis that we have to put aside our differences and work towards, getting everybody on board, international agencies, seeking assistance where we don't have the resources ourselves, seeking the assistance of the Islamic community, who, as far as I am aware, because they have spoken to me, a lot of the Islamic entities in Trinidad and Tobago, local Islamic entities, are prepared to assist in the repatriating exercise, to put the adults on bonds, to have them prosecuted as the case may be, if it is they are alleged to commit certain crimes, and also even apart from that, that they be put on something called the civil contract, meaning that they will submit themselves to a restriction of movement and to submitting themselves to be checked at certain points according to according to national security concerns. But the children, this is where my focus is. The children are the persons who are languishing out there in inhumane conditions. They are languishing in conditions where they are subject to the most heinous types of abuse, sexual and otherwise, and we cannot turn a blind eye to this crisis. It is a humanitarian crisis, and we cannot afford to be coy about it. The discussion is far more advanced as to whether or not we should repatriate these persons. Mm-hmm. These persons are going to be placed in a position where they will be deported or they will be returned at some stage. The question is, what do we do with all those 72 plus children who are languishing out there, ranging from the ages of 4 years old to 16 and 17 years old? How are we going to deal with them if it is they continue to be there for another 3 or 4 years, some of them being teenagers now, but will subsequently eventually become adults?
Well, Mr. Ramali, furthermore, the Trinidad and Tobago Newsday has reported, and please correct this if this is wrong, of your intentions to travel to Syria at the end of June with, and I quote now from the Newsday, to engage in cross-border identification, verification, by ascertaining that those who are there are actually born of TNT nationals. Now, the Minister of Foreign and CARICOM Affairs, Dr. Amory Brown, has urged caution. He says that he cannot stop you, he can only give advice. I mean, why take that risk? I hear what you're saying on a humanitarian level, but if you yourself are suggesting that this is beyond politics and we should not politicize this issue, would you say with confidence that you are satisfied with government's intentions and perhaps their ability to carry out this process?
The confidence will come with the government indicating clearly what their policy for reintegration is. Hilton, the population must understand that the government has not said no to repatriation. That was not their last statement, which was made a couple weeks back, about 2 weeks or so. The government, in fact, said that steps are being taken, and to aid the process, they set up a 3-member committee. So the government has not said anything about no to repatriation. The confidence in this whole thing is if the government can indicate clearly what their policy is in terms of repatriation and reintegration of children and others, what is their policy in terms what associated legislation will be implemented, what systems or mechanisms will be put in place to reintegrate successfully these children, as well as protect national security interests. Mm-hmm. I noticed yesterday, that the Minister of National Security, and I believe it was a media invitation issued yesterday for the opening. This is what is headed on the Ministry of National Security's media invitation, opening of the head office for the Committee for the Repatriation of Nationals from Overseas. So that is a telling heading. And it says that the Committee for the Repatriation of Nationals from Overseas invites all media houses to attend and cover the opening of its head office. And this is today at 4:30 p.m., 9 Court Street, San Fernando. So it says the Minister of National Security will be in attendance, etc., etc. So I don't know where this discussion is coming about from can we successfully do it or not? That has to be, the onus of that is on all of us, but particularly the government, to say what policy. So if it is they're opening a head office now for a repatriation committee to actually occupy, we have certain questions, and they have asked from the media reports, the minister and the member, or maybe the head of that committee that the National Security and the Prime Minister has put forward, a 3-member committee. They have asked Mr. Nizam Mohammed and sorry, I should say asked, but Minister Hines and Nizam Mohammed are meeting families today. That is what one newspaper report says today. So I would urge all family members, all media houses to attend the opening. And I would urge everyone to ask the government, where is the policy that drives this opening of this committee head office? What resources are going to be allocated to it? What is the remit of the repatriation committee? Will the government finally tell us what is the retainees' strategy? What is the policy for reintegration? So these are the things that this is where the conversation has to go. It really is not up any longer, afford any longer to play politics with it.
Mr. Ambali, I think, my apologies, we've more or less out of time, but I'm going to squeeze this question in. Would you advise or encourage, from a humanitarian level, any fellow Trinbagonians who will make the trip to Iraq or Syria to help with this exercise? I mean, you've stated your intention. Would you advise or encourage others from a humanitarian level to travel as well?
Well, it has to be something that is focused. It has to be something that will assist the process. I noticed today in media, one of the print media, that Mr. Nizam Mohammed has indicated him being the head of that repatriation committee. He has indicated that myself going to a conflict zone for the purposes of cross-border identity verification will not hinder their work. That is something that I pointed out in response to Minister Amory Brown. I will not encourage people to just simply go to a conflict zone. The purpose of going to the conflict zone is anything that is done to seek to repatriate will be premised on cross-border identity verification. In other words, we must have something that tangible that we can hold in hand that will say that, yes, these persons who are in fact seeking repatriation are nationals or children of nationals. And that is something that is a process that will have to be undertaken anyway. Well, the discussion should not be focused on Rambali going to Syria. For that purpose, the discussion should be on what policy, what framework, what associated legislation the government can is saying that it has in mind to put in place, announce it, and let all the international bodies who are prepared to assist, because we will need assistance, let us get that ball rolling with a timeline. We have been here before, Kitan, in 2019, 2020. You all will recall, the population will recall the Nightingale Committee of 2018. We have been at this exact point in years gone before, since 2018 coming up. Yeah. And therefore, at this point in time, look at how many years has gone, 5+ years since the establishment of the Nightingale Committee. Since then, persons have come back to Trinidad and Tobago. The government should also tell us how many persons, according to their intelligence, have actually returned.
Well, Mr. Ambali, my sincerest apologies, sir. We very much over time, but I want to thank you very much for your time and your presence on AM Prime this morning. And I know that you're under the weather, so I appreciate it even greater. But keep well, sir. Keep well. Get better. And who knows? Maybe your questions may be answered following yesterday's media release by the Ministry of National Security. But for now, let's end it there, sir, and all the very best.
Thank you very much, Kitan, and to your viewers and listeners. My absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Keep well. That was Shogunas West MP, Mr. Dinesh Rambali, joining us on AM Prime this morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we have to take a break here on AM Prime, but when we return, well, we get into a lighter conversation, propelling the local and regional creative sector. We'll be right back after this.
I am Rondell Donowa, attorney at law and host of Strictly Legal on WESN Content Capital. Strictly Legal is a legal program geared towards informing you, the public, of your legal rights, responsibilities, and remedies. So be viewing Thursdays 10 a.m. to 10:30 a.m.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you do in Andre.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
Join me, Sule A. Joseph, as I delve into the day-to-day psychological issues plaguing our society. We will discuss behaviors that encompass the biological influences, social pressures, and environmental factors that affect how you think, act, and feel. Sight, Thursdays at 11:30 a.m., only on WESN, Content Capital.
The issue, the continued rise in the price of flour and its impact on the cost of living in Trinidad and Tobago. How should we go about it? I want to ask you, what has been revealed to you about the state of vulnerability in the country because of this exercise and because of what we're going through? Is the government losing the war on the vaccine front?
The discussion should revolve around the common good for the greatest number of people in Trinidad and Tobago.
How do we inculcate a sense of respect and regard for people who may not be of your own political ilk or persuasion?
The communities are now being used by political opportunists. So
when the tables are turned, it's the same way. Okay, this has been 10 questions. I'm Andy Johnson, and we'll see you next time.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered.
The conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN Content Capital.
Varicose veins is a serious medical condition that causes significant pain and debility.
The varicose veins might appear because the body is trying to form alternative pathways. And next thing you know, you go and treat that, and you've left an undiagnosed DVT there, which can be life-threatening. And if you don't diagnose and treat that, then you're treating the varicose veins, but you've ignored a big problem.
What's Up, Doc? Every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN Content Capital.
Welcome back to AM Prime. So as hinted, we were due to have a conversation on the propelling of the local and regional creative sector, and that was with the Trans-Tobago Copyright Collection Organization. Unfortunately, our guests aren't able to make it this morning, but I can brief you as to what's happening there. The Trans-Tobago Copyright Collection Organization was founded on the 20th of August in the year 2000, a non-profit organization that is a copyright licensing body that protects unique areas of copyright such as works of mass, live and featured performances under neighboring rights, and author-composer under traditional copyright. Now, on the 4th of April 2023, which was last week, Tuesday, the Trans-Tobago Copyright Collection Organization actually signed a historic memorandum of understanding with Jamaica, Canada, and South Africa. It stated that the agreements with the Jamaican Music Society, Artists Canada, and South African Music Performance Rights Association on international property rights, creative and music industry. The MOU will create unprecedented opportunities for creators to have their work protected and recognized in these respective territories. Now, I think it's good news on the face of it if we all understand the issues associated with copyright here in Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, even us as a station, we have to pay our license to the Copyright Organization of Trinidad and Tobago, but this is a different entity. The thing for me is I wonder what really establishes this as groundbreaking. Precisely why is it being referred to as a groundbreaking memorandum of understanding? And does a memorandum of understanding even equate to anything? So is this putting pen to paper going to translate to realistic benefits? I mean, perhaps the signing with the Jamaican Music Society to a certain extent is non-profit organizations or non-governmental organizations furthering regional integration. But what benefits would it have for young people in Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension, Jamaica? Financially, in these economic times, traditionally, you're seeing students or young people shifting away from the performing arts because there is that notion that there is not much safety and security within such sectors. So how will this benefit them financially and in terms of economics? All that is due to be answered, and all that we could probably have a conversation later on. But there is still a concern for me, and that concern is, we've heard it all before. I'm not the first individual who has heard this, and I'm pretty sure I would be the last, that the culture here in Trinidad and Tobago is one that is dying, and not necessarily one that is appreciated. Is it now with this memorandum of understanding with South Africa, with Canada and Jamaica, is there a fear that there is their culture is going to overly influence that or drown that out within society here in Trinidad and Tobago? Or perhaps it's the complete opposite, who knows? It's going to lead to a greater appreciation for our culture and for the creative arts sector, because it allows for greater export to these countries and understanding that their work of art, their hard work, their talent, and all their efforts will bring them opportunity, knowing that it is fully protected. But on the face of it, I suppose always with any sort of press release, you take it with a pinch of salt. But generally speaking, it seems to be good. It seems to be something that's beneficial, and we'll look forward to further updates on this movement of this groundbreaking memorandum of understanding. Now, later on here in the program here on AM Prime, we will be speaking about regional food security, and we will be welcoming the chairman of the Caribbean Supermarkets Association and the chairman of the Supermarkets Association of Trinidad and Tobago, Mr. Rajiv Dipti, to have a conversation following their launch of a trade show and conference event yesterday at Crave Restaurant. But timing is absolutely everything, because I'm taking a look at, again, the news day dated Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. Global food prices decline further. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations says there have been a 12th consecutive decline in the cost of some commonly traded global food products. In an April 7th release, the organization reported that the decline in the benchmark index for international food commodity prices in March. However, the chief economist Maximo Torero said while prices dropped at the global level, they are still very high and continue to increase in domestic markets, which posed additional food security challenges. Globally, food prices are dropping. Domestic markets, they're still increasing. There are many factors for that, whether it be the cost of shipping, whether it be the cost of duties for importing such goods. It could be simply competition. It could simply be on the domestic market, demands are high, and therefore that would drive price up. But there are many factors to consider. The thing is, recently, have we seen any food prices in Trinidad and Tobago drop at all? I can't answer that question because if I'm being honest with you, my grocery bill always seems to be getting higher and higher, even if it's the same number of items and the same products that I purchase. It always surprises me, and I get very much teary-eyed when I end up at the cash register afterwards. But you have to eat. And even buying your basic goods, even buying the necessary items to ensure that you survive, well, that in itself is becoming more and more difficult. But the issue with food security goes beyond just importing. It's the issue about our domestic production. Now, this was also raised yesterday by Dr. Mohammed Irfan, the President of the Republic of Ghana, and also the Minister in charge of Agriculture for the CARICOM's Quasi Cabinet. Well, he's indicating that there needs to be greater focus, and he has been advocating for this for some time, with respect to regional food security, which can only begin at a domestic level. But this time, he's asked international producers to help with this situation, whether it be through the establishment of factories, because there is land available and there is opportunity for agriculture to be developed, or whether it be through financing for other projects. But let me give you just one quick example before we take our break here on AM Prime. I think recently it was circulating on social media that the price of cricks, vital supplies as we refer to it, the price of cricks is almost the same price in the United States as it is on the shelves here in Trinidad and Tobago. I am not sure how that exists. I'm not sure the economics of it all, but I would assume, just as any other citizen, given the cost of shipping to the United States, the clearance of duties, storage, transportation, and even having to pack it on the shelves, that's going to cost quite a bit of money. So how is it $1 in the United States as compared to the prices on the shelves here in Trinidad and Tobago? Doesn't make much sense. But the question that I would ask is, are local manufacturers taking advantage of the domestic market here in Trinidad and Tobago? Well, it seems as though they are. But all that we can probably get answers to, or at least an opinion to that, later on when we welcome Mr. Dipty. For now, we take a quick break here on AM Prime, and when we return, well, we'll get into some regional updates. Stay tuned to the program.
The best laptops and tablets are at dbesttoys.com. Get a Gateway 14.1-inch Ultra Slim notebook or an HP 14-inch laptop at the best prices in TNT. Get the Fire 7 tablet for $474. You can also shop the latest Amazon Fire Sticks. Call now at 32-DBEST to order, or visit us in-store at Forces Flagship Mac Bean. Shop online now at dbesttoys.com. Free delivery available throughout Trinidad and Tobago. Cash or links on delivery.
Join me, Dr. Nalini Kokram, on What's Up Doc, where we discuss all your burning questions concerning health.
Trinidad and Tobago is among one of the highest risk group of patients that develop this form of genetic breast cancer.
What I'd like to take home from a short interview like this, screening. You must screen.
Because it's silent.
It's silent.
Yeah.
And because it's silent, you don't know it's there.
What's Up Doc, every Tuesday and Thursday on WESN, Content Capital.
Take some time for yourself or spend some time with the family at Sandy Point Village Hotel. Enjoy our various studio and suite apartments, self-contained with their own kitchenettes and Wi-Fi. We also have our famous 100-foot swimming pool and our beachfront restaurant, the Steak and Lobster Grill. And our location in Crown Point puts us near the center of activity from the nylon pool to the local nightlife. Call us and make your reservations at 639-8533, 389-2378, or email us at sandypointvillagehotel@gmail.com.
word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Well, thank you very much for staying with us on AM Prime this morning, ladies and gentlemen. We now get into the regional updates to give you an understanding of what's happening across our neighboring islands. And we start with Cuba, where the political and economic crisis has worsened by the knock-on effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. This has left many people, especially younger people, feeling as though they have no choice but to seek opportunities elsewhere. As outside of Cuba, this trend has further compounded Cuba's aging population. We take a look at this report from Al Jazeera.
It's not easy watching your children leave, says Mayra Cedeña Guzman. She's a mother of two, whose children are among the millions of Cubans now living in the United States.
I'm desperate to go to them. The situation here is getting worse every day. I'm alone in the country and there are no medicine. There are long lines to get food. I need to be with my children. This is not what I expected. I gave my life for this country, but not anymore.
Mayra's father fought in Fidel Castro's revolution. Now she's waiting for her children to apply for a U.S. government reunification program that allows residents to bring their family members from Cuba to America. Maria del Carmen Cotto's son has also left. She too is alone and waiting for the same visa.
There is so much stress. I live on my own. The situation is sad. The hospitals are horrible. There is no medicine. We get only 7 eggs a month. I live on my pension, but I can barely survive on it.
Her pension is around $8 a month. Mayra and Maria del Carmen are proof of a new reality in Cuba, where young people go abroad in search of a better future, leaving their relatives behind. Analysts say that by 2030, the average Cuban will be 60 years old.
Cubans are leaving the country in record numbers. U.S. government figure shows that over 250,000 Cubans entered the U.S. illegally in a period of 13 months. This is almost 3% of Cuba's population. Here in Havana, people are also coming to foreign embassies to try to find a legal pathway to other countries.
The economic situation is the driving force. Rising inflation, a shortage of food and medicine, prolonged power outages and a trade embargo turn life into a daily struggle. Many have lost hope that anything will change. The opposition blames the government.
What is happening now is a crisis generated by the government. Salaries have lost 4 or 5 times their purchasing power. Soaring inflation was caused by the government, by a reorganization of the currency, and the government knows it did not work. And of course, they'll never say they got it wrong and will blame US sanctions for the problem.
Cuba has prided itself on its universal care and education system. But the increase in migration has presented a new challenge, an aging population, people who are too old to leave, but unable to survive if they stay. Teresa Bo, Al Jazeera, Havana, Cuba.
Very distressing and disturbing situation that is evolving in Cuba. It's something that has been happening for quite some time. The reason why I use that word evolving is because if you take a look at a couple of facts there that were stated, it's estimated that by 2030, the average age of the Cuban population would be 60 years old. And according to one member of the opposition, well, the purchasing power of Cubans and their salaries have decreased by 4 to 5 times. Now, the rising cost of food, given global inflationary prices, as well as the political situation in Cuba, does not help this at all. It also speaks, by the way, very disturbing details. Medicine is not available, long lines to get food. People cannot survive on their pension. I think one individual is saying that they get only 7 eggs a month. That is heartbreaking to say the least. I actually do recall that a few individuals told me that traveling to Cuba is absolutely beautiful. The individuals there are very hospitable, but you don't tip in cash. Apparently, if you tip the people whom you see working in the hotel or individuals who help you with simple little things like a bar of soap or even a toothbrush or a tube of toothpaste, they're absolutely grateful for that, given the fact that it's very difficult to get supplies. So the issue in Cuba is certainly one that is not sweet. And it sometimes makes you wonder, with all the stresses that we face here in Trinidad and Tobago, when you take a look at what other nations are facing right around the corner, such as Cuba, we're not that entirely bad off. But people might say you can't compare because that's apples to bananas and not apples to apples. The situation politically there is much different to the situation politically here, and therefore maybe Cuba's own could be resolved a lot easier. Who knows? But that's up for you as the viewer to speculate. Anyway, moving on now to our second regional update. We move to the island of Jamaica, where the Commissioner of Police is optimistic that a partnership with security companies, and that's private security companies, will stop attacks, as there are plans to roll out an island-wide initiative to ensure crime remains low. We take a look at this report.
The commissioner said the police intend to roll out an island-wide plan to help keep crime low. The commissioner announced this in an interview with our news team as he toured several divisions in the corporate area on Friday. Kirk Wright spoke with Major General Anthony Anderson at the Kingston Central Police and has this report.
The commissioner says even with the 20% reduction in major crimes, the police are determined to reduce the numbers even further with a new security plan that's about to be unveiled.
We have launched a series of special operations across the country. Each police division is launching a series of operations that are designed to impact criminals who we know are moving across the country but are in those locations and giving us some trouble.
Major General Anderson says each division will have its unique plan.
You know, part of our planning process is that the planning addresses the problems that exist in that particular area and that particular police division. So each plan is boutique. Each one is created for the purpose and fit for purpose. Absolutely. No two will look the same, but they will use similar tools and apply them in different ways.
We asked the commissioner about the continued attacks on beryllium guards transporting large sums of cash. The attacks have continued despite the implementation of new strategies between the police and the security company. The commissioner expressed optimism that the plans will work.
Once the things that we spoke about are implemented, it will go a long way in protecting those trucks, the members who ride on it, the guards who ride on it, and the money inside. But at the same time, as you're aware, we have arrested a number of persons who are involved in those robberies. So it's not a thing that you're going to do and necessarily get away with. As a matter of fact, you won't.
This week, the police say they arrested a treasurer officer employed to Beryllium Security Company as part of their investigation into the attacks on the guards. They say the treasurer officer was found with about $500,000 in his possession. Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
A 20% reduction in serious crimes in Jamaica. Well, according to the Commissioner of Police, Major General Anthony Anderson, they're not stopping there. This new crime plan, an island-wide crime plan, is not just made up of one part, but there are many plans that make up this one plan, and each plan is going to be different, very specific. Now, perhaps Trinidad and Tobago could learn from that, where a crime plan, one, is needed, because I'm not entirely sure if we do have one. I don't think we do. And two, if one is to be actually created, should it be different plans for different areas across the islands of Trinidad and Tobago? Well, the CARICOM Crime Symposium is due to take place between April 17th and 18th here in TNT. Perhaps such ideas would be further shared and further exposed with regional heads, and again, maybe we might learn something from that. But we move on now to the island of Grenada, the Spice Isle, where the general sentiment being echoed by villagers and stakeholders, saying that it could have been worse. Well, this is following the partial collapse of the dilapidated Catholic church building in Grenville on Monday. Residents in and around the Cook Hill area reported hearing what sounded like an explosion when the structure collapsed. Let's take a look at this report.
A serious concern that has lingered in the minds of many over the years became reality on Easter Monday morning as the ruins that was once the St. Andrew Roman Catholic Church on Cook Hill Road, Grenville, came crashing down. Debris from the structure, commonly referred to as the Old Church, rendered the main road impassable. Residents in the area believe it was luck the incident occurred on a holiday, which possibly saved the lives of civilians. On a regular day, the road is frequented by vehicles plying the eastern side, with the tent housing vendors in close proximity. A resident in the area said they had been observing the state of the building in recent days.
We went to church here and we also went to school here. So it's heartbreaking now to see it come down this morning. When only yesterday, Lemon and myself stood here and we were taking him and we taking pictures. We were saying it coming down soon, and this morning it comes down. We have a lot of our past priests is buried in that old church there. So it's very heartbreaking for the Catholic faith.
No casualties were reported. Terence Walters, National Disaster Coordinator with the National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, was on site to assess the situation.
Basically, to have a first-hand view of what is happening, we had, part of the building collapse, and then we've had a response from the Ministry of Infrastructure and, various entities come and ensure that the road is cleared and, the wires and so are put back in place, and we restore whatever services were disrupted. So I'm here just to have a first-hand look so that at least, we can provide a basic report on what has happened.
Representative from the Ministry of Works, Peter Charles, said when he arrived, the rubble had been partially cleared.
We were called out here this morning because portion of the road was closed off to debris. When I get on site, there were already officials here doing the mobilizing for the equipment and the truck to have the road cleared up as soon as possible. Right, so if you can see here, most of the debris have been removed, and we just getting just waiting for the final cleanup of the smaller debris to have the road groomed out properly and then reopened to vehicular traffic.
10 months ago, Catholic Bishop Clyde Harvey had called for an evaluation of the structure to determine whether it should be demolished or not, considering it is a historic building and had still had some historic artifacts in it. He was grateful for the time the collapse happened.
Where do we go from here? First of all, I want to really thank God. Thank God that this has happened the way it has happened, that nobody has been hurt in the process, and if I might add, that it has happened during the school holidays. Because where we are challenged now is the rest of the work that has to be done, pulling down the rest of the tower, has to happen within the next few days before school starts again. So we've had a meeting already. The government has been very, very good in terms of the NADMA, the Ministry of Works, the police and so on cooperating. Well, what is important now is to pull down the rest of the tower. That is what is now very, very important, and we hope by tomorrow morning to get moving on that.
The bishop said it is critical that the rest of the upper part of the tower be demolished ahead of the reopening of schools on Monday. The building was decommissioned as a place of worship in 1915, 82 years after the first cornerstone was laid on the 4th of April 1841, due to mosquito infestation. It was used as a primary school until 1972, when it was again abandoned. Reporting for GBN News, Beverly Telesford.
Well, thankfully, no one was hurt or no one was harmed in that incident. And the thing is, imagine waking up to that crashing sound, what you would assume is an explosion, but a structure coming down. But as I said, no injuries reported. But it also suggests that as much as we would like to preserve certain architectural structures across the islands, this is a blanket statement now, not specific to Grenada or not specific to Trinidad and Tobago. just across the region, if we are to preserve architectural structures, whether it be because of their beauty, because of their significance, or even because sometimes they're deemed as sacred, we also need to preserve life. We need to preserve mankind. So we have to take measures and ensure that they are in place, that preserving such buildings also will preserve safety and security, and we can't allow them to remain there. It's a bit sad that this iconic structure, the dilapidated Catholic church building in Grenville, it collapsed, but it's in my opinion, not to be too harsh or unkind. A proactive approach should have been taken, and not just wait. It's not always just about waiting or having conversations. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, let's take a break here on AM Prime for WSN's News on the Hour. When we return, we get into our final conversation this morning as we speak about regional food security. Stay tuned.
Here's your WESN News on the Hour. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for joining us. Here are the headlines. Public Utilities Minister confirms water truck racketeering. Minister Leons participates in high-level discussions on regional financing for sustainable housing. Regionally, Guyana leads CARICOM countries in economic growth for 2023. And internationally, 6 killed as avalanche sweeps French Alps mountainside. Now for the details. Is water truck racketeering occurring? Public Utilities Minister Marvin Gonzalez spoke with state media on the issue, where he confirmed that this practice has been happening and it is not new. The minister says corruption is alive and well within several state entities existent for years.
That is going on for quite a long time in Trinidad and Tobago. And I have always commented that where there appears to be dysfunction, somebody's making money out of it. And there are people who are invested in dysfunction in Trinidad and Tobago, not only in the Water and Sewage Authority or in the utility sector, but all over. When I raised the issue with respect to water truck and water trucking in Wassa, it's just another example of the level of corruption that exists and that are so pervasive in Trinidad and Tobago.
The minister, though not naming specific communities, says he did in fact make visits and confirmed the racketeering.
I visited 3 or 5 communities based on reports that came to me, even from the Prime Minister in his constituency, where he drew to my attention a community that was enjoying 24/7 water was not having water. And I took some senior personnel from Wassa and I journeyed to the community, and I heard directly from the residents who showed me bills where they paid for water trucking services. And you would know that once you are a legitimate Wassa customer and for one reason or the other the authority cannot provide you with water, you are entitled to a free truck-borne supply of water.
Minister in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, Adrian Leons, represented Trinidad and Tobago at the Forum of Ministers and high-level authorities on housing and urban development in Latin America and the Caribbean in Buenos Aires, Argentina. The theme of this year's ministerial conference is funding for climate change mitigation in urban settlements. The forum reviewed advances to address housing deficits, the challenges of climate change, and the strengthening of sustainable construction and the housing value chain. The forum explored the possibility of a fund for regional financing, which would contribute to projects and programs to positively impact climate change, resilience, and greenhouse gas reduction in Latin America and the Caribbean. In regional developments now, Guyana is expected to record the highest growth among CARICOM countries this year, while Haiti will record under 1% growth in 2023, according to the latest World Economic Outlook released by the International Monetary Fund on Tuesday. In international news now, at least 6 people were killed and several others injured in an avalanche that struck the French Alps over the weekend. Emergency workers were deployed after the incident at the Amundsen Glacier near Mont Blanc in southeast France. Rescue work is ongoing. Clouds of snow rolled down the mountainside, according to video footage shared by Reuters. Well, that was your News to the Hour on WESN. I am Denise Martin. Thanks for watching.
This May, the spectacular event you've been waiting for is coming. May 27th, celebrate amazing North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds, Blanchisses. Born here, played here.
Welcome back to AM Prime here on WESN Content Capital. I'm Keaton Sean. I'm thanking you for staying with me this morning. And now we're focusing on the topic of food and food security. And I'm very pleased to welcome to the program the chairman of the Supermarkets Association of Trinidad and the Caribbean Supermarkets Association, Mr. Rajiv Dipti. Good morning.
Good morning, Keaton, and good morning to all your viewers. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Dipti, for joining me this morning. So let me just give a brief synopsis for our viewers. The Caribbean Supermarkets Association, together in collaboration with the CARICOM Private Sector Organization and the Supermarkets Association of Trinidad and Tobago, launched the Caribbean Food and Beverage Trade Show and Conference event, which is due to take place on Wednesday, June 28th to Saturday, April 1st, 2020. I think that date might be a bit wrong, Saturday, July 1st, 2023. But, Mr. Dipti, forgive me if I sound very shallow, but an event, a trade show for supermarkets, exactly what is this event and what is hope to come out of it?
I'm glad you're asking, Keaton. And for all your viewers this morning, I'd be more than happy to share some light on the topic. The Caribbean Food and Beverage Trade Show and Conference event is intended to be the first of its kind. It's a hybrid trade offering. It's 3 parts. We're looking at bringing to the public a food and beverage culinary event. We are going to bring to you some of the nation's, some of the region's top chefs, some of the region's top restaurateurs, some of the region's top, winemakers, beer makers, artisan food producers. We're going to bring all of this to you at the Center of Excellence from Wednesday, June 8th to Saturday, July 1st. It's across 4 days. It's intended to be B2B, B2C, and it's not just another trade show. This is something that's going to be highly interactive, going to be extremely engaging to the public. Every evening, we envision that this food festival is going to rotate different islands and different cuisines from around the region to bring to those patrons a taste of the Caribbean, something that is truly unique, something that has not been done before. And it's going to bring all those flavors to the palates of the patrons that come through the doors at the Center of Excellence. There's also going to be a conference event that's taking place across the 4 days. It's going to be taking place on cutting edge topics, leading industry trends. For example, just to give you an idea of some of the conference topics, we would be exploring fintech, the energy debate, particularly when it comes to the adaptability of how we see agriculture moving forward in the 21st century, and solutions that really push a self-sufficiency narrative when it comes to food security across the region. This is an initiative that is driven by the Caribbean Supermarket Association, but more importantly, it's driven in conjunction with our CARICOM private sector organization and our CARICOM partners from across the Caribbean that see this as a way to showcase to starting in Trinidad and Tobago, the benefits, the diversity of products across the Caribbean, the benefits of local consumption, to encourage local consumption, whilst also encouraging the region's top manufacturers, top processors to come into the same space in the trade exhibition.
Well, you know, it's that last point that you've raised with respect to a focus on local products. I mean, given the fact that I think it's around 85% of the food on our shelves here in TNT are imported. You know, with this event and this trade show with regional chefs, I mean, how much focus is going to be on using specifically locally grown and locally manufactured products? I mean, removing the imports for a moment, I know it's very difficult to do so given the fact that ingredients are necessary and utilized in such dishes, but the greatest focus is on regional food security. To what extent is this the start of your association, the Caribbean Association's attempts to integrate that into our palates?
I think you made some excellent points. First of all, I agree with you. We cannot displace the foreign consumption in a significant way. However, what we can do is encourage more local consumption. There are a number of benefits associated with something like this. We've been talking about increasing local consumption for a long time, but we've also been talking about the health benefits associated with displacing some of the consumption that we've seen across the board. Just to give you an idea of some of the things that you're going to experience in this culinary cuisine is, you know, things like I've been sitting down with some of the chefs. One of them is using piwa for a piwa soup. Another is using kasserip. You know, how many of our customers know about the benefits associated with that consumption and the things, the products that we're putting out. So we're really trying to increase the profile and awareness. And it starts with something like this, Keaton, because it's really about getting our customers to know what the alternatives are and how those can be consumed in a significantly beneficial manner. And it's about working with who's already at the table. And it's about increasing the diversity of products to the final customer, creating new markets. Because when we talk about increasing agricultural production within CARICOM, you have to talk about where am I creating the market for that production.
Okay, and you know, I know that I'm glad you raised that about the market for that production, because I know that you mentioned you know, local manufacturers, and I would assume the bigger manufacturers. But what about opportunities for local cottage industries and local cottage food processing companies? Yeah,
that's an excellent point again, Keaton, because as you would have noted and as we would have seen, there were a number of them that popped up during COVID. There were a lot of, as you put it, cottage startups, cottage processors. And there's been an opportunity that we're exploring with them since the pandemic, actually, to encourage them to scale up, to attract investment for some of these things. But it's also an opportunity to put some of these producers in touch with supermarkets at home and within the region. With the support of the CPSO, whom I cannot understate as a collaborative partner in this project, we are going to be creating markets both locally. So there's the opportunity for local processors to come to this event, showcase your products, and make a case for why it should be on the shelf of your favorite grocery store.
Mm-hmm. Are there any obstacles involved in this process? I mean, putting together such an event is no easy task, but obstacles more so in terms of trying to plan, we're focusing on regional food security, local food security, and pushing cottage industries. I mean, what are some of the challenges that the association or all bodies involved are facing, if any at all?
Well, yeah, there are challenges, Keaton. Obviously, it's the first of its kind, right? So there's the value proposition, but we feel that is strong enough to really take off on its own. It's no surprise that we would have seen Dr. Irfan Ali talk, I think it was yesterday or the day prior, about the need for the private sector to get involved if we're going to get serious about 25 by 25. And what that means is CARICOM has made a commitment to reduce the food import bill across the region by 25% by 2025. Where does that start? It starts with the private sector leading the way and encouraging our governments to do the same, because that's the narrative that's on the table right now. So we have a food import bill across the region that is close to $6 billion US. Trinidad and Tobago is responsible for close to $1 billion US worth of that trade. And if we can make a dent in it with an event like this, I think that there's good reason to support something like this. Obviously, logistically, we are being challenged. This is the first one that we are deploying, but we're no stranger to challenges, and we're no strangers to overcoming those obstacles.
Do you think that's a realistic figure, 25% by 2025? I mean, that's just that's less than 2 years away.
Yeah, I hear you. I agree with you. I think that first of all, I think I applaud them for setting such lofty targets. However, I think realistically speaking, when you try to see how that is actually achieved, it's something that really pushes the needle towards how you can do that, because unless you have buy-in across the board from Suriname, Guyana, Barbados, Jamaica, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, so the wider Caribbean, then you're going to be facing challenges. Let's not forget that CARICOM in itself has issues with regards to intra-regional trade and the encouragement thereof that we are also hoping to achieve through this expo.
What does this event and by extension the Caribbean Supermarkets Association mean for regional integration?
Keaton, even as we're announcing this event and we're calling it the FAB show, the Food and Beverage Show, it's going to be something that we envision, while it's the first of its kind, it's going to be one that eventually rotates around the Caribbean. This is something that we're going to take to some of the other islands. It's something that we hope to continue in a way that is sustainable. And I think that if you want to, you have to start somewhere. The private sector leads by example, and you try to get the support regionally, you try to get the support locally, and we'll see how it develops. But I mean, it's an exciting space for us at the moment.
Is it too early to raise the conversation of opportunities for export of Caribbean products? I'm aware that there is an appreciation for certain products, whether it be hot peppers in Europe, even how chocolate could be found in the shelves in Japan. Is it an opportunity to expand for export?
Yeah, Sydney. And the thing is, when you find good products, you tend to identify them quickly. You tend to try to get the opportunities to scale them up. You try to homogenize them up to the standardization that is required for export to the territory that it's heading to. And how you do that is with the assistance of bodies such as CARIRI, NAMDEFCO, the Bureau of Standards, where standards are required for the intended export destination. But the thing is that there are lots of challenges for local producers, and I think that the first one is scale, capacity, scope, the input of raw materials required for mass manufacturing, because some of the exports, while they're good, they're not necessarily up to terms and scale in terms of how they want to be. So we try to get them export ready, and then we hand them over to some of the bodies like InvestTT, ExportTT, etc.
Well, there will be some viewers this morning wondering, listen, not to be unkind or disrespectful, but this is not necessarily beneficial to me. I want to know, how are programs, initiatives like this, in the end, going to help me with my pocket, for example? Like, is this going to have, if at all, any impact upon domestic food prices? We know globally food prices are dropping, but domestically, they're still very much high. Is this an opportunity to try and look at avenues where we can decrease my bill when I go to the cash register?
You've raised an age-old conundrum, my friend, and I'll tell you why that is. Because at the end of the day, the goods, the choices, the decisions that consumers make are reflected by what you see on the grocery shelves. What we hope to showcase to customers, because at the end of the day, in our industry, the customer is king. The customer is the one that goes into the store and continues to purchase products of a certain variety, of a certain category, and at certain price points. We are going to put out to you local, we are going to put out to you regional offerings. There's also space for some of the local and internationally manufactured stuff that's going to be at the expo, yes. But we're hoping the alternatives, when everybody asks for alternatives, they need to start making it their choice, their brand, their options. And I think, Ethan, that what you're going to see is, and you have to remember that as long as we're not producing it, not manufacturing it, we're going to be paying more for it because we are an import-dependent nation. We're buying the goods at foreign prices. This is an opportunity for customers to make choices for themselves at certain price points and to support the Caribbean.
Well, I'm, pleased that you were very much specific in seeing at setting price points, because often there have been arguments that it's cheaper to purchase imported food, imported products. But
yeah, and that's scale. That's entirely down to scale, because I think that when we look at local producers, they have that issue. They have the issue for raw materials. They have the issue for packaging materials. They have the issue. It's just a lot. And you're right. Sometimes imported stuff is a lot cheaper. And that's why that's why I made the point earlier that we're not displacing foreign brands. We want to encourage more local options.
But do you think that manufacturers, local manufacturers, in terms of their price points, there are many factors to consider, as you would have just mentioned, but do you think that at times it seems as though they are taking advantage of the consumer given their price points? Has there been any sort of study or any sort of revealing of facts in this instance?
That's an interesting point, because there are regulatory bodies within Trinidad that are supposed to ensure the equity of trade, and that goes between the manufacturers and the retailers. I would say that some of the manufacturers, a lot of them have been having challenges throughout COVID. It's been a very capital-intensive environment. While you might only want to consider that the prices are just beginning to soften on the international market, it's something that we've seen local manufacturers really, in particular, work very hard. Some of the more reputable manufacturers, I would say, have done an excellent job. They've all had to import the raw materials for the inputs of production. And, sometimes, just to give you an example, when you take a look at the commodity and mercantile exchange and some of the prices of some of those same inputs and how they've gone skyrocketed as much as 150%. And then some of the price increases have only been 12 to 15%. I would say some of them have done an excellent job in absorbing the costs and really trying. So between stores and between manufacturing, I would say they've done well over the last 2 years. Are there instances, perhaps, where there's some kind of, as you put it, taking advantage of prices? it's such a competitive environment, Keaton, with so many retailers and with social media so cognizant. I could tell you stores are afraid to put out a bad price to customers because they don't want to end up on social media.
Well, that's the power of social media. But Mr. Dipty, as we conclude this conversation, thank you very much for your time and presence this morning. This event, this trade show event, and these 4 nights of I suppose, opportunity for locals to come and view what is available to them. Though this is a private sector initiative, has there been support from whether it be from the government or regional government bodies?
I don't want to preempt any of the conversations that are taking place right now, but when we can announce it, we will announce it. As you put it, we're going to have 4 nights of culinary events, so I look forward to welcoming you because I'll be taking you around to enjoy some of those events, Keaton.
Yeah, certainly. Well, I look forward to it, and I would be there for sure. But Mr. Dipty, thank you very much for your time this morning and for these efforts. We can only applaud such efforts and hope that the intentions and the hopes for the benefits that go with them become reality. Keep well, sir.
Thank you, Keaton. Have a good day, Trinidad and Tobago. Take care.
You too. That was Mr. Rajiv Dipty, the head of the Supermarket Association of Trinidad and Tobago and the Caribbean Supermarket Association. Ladies and gentlemen, we take a break here on AM Prime. When we return, we conclude this morning's proceedings.
FanZone, your reliable, authentic supplier, has just gotten better. You can now visit our website www.fanzonett.com for your authentic wear and collectibles. The only place where you can use both your Visa debit and credit cards. Visit our website fanzonett.com to make your purchase today.
What's the best way to grab the attention of viewers? Please exercise more patience. You have to be kidding me.
Doing what we do best. I'll say at the very least it's a conspiracy of laziness against the people.
Join me, Keaton Shaw.
And me, Sean Michael Small, for Talking Point.
Weekdays from 8 a.m. to 9:30 a.m.
We go in depth on the trending issues and engage the most controversial newsmakers
as we get them to account to the people for their actions.
You can't go to the government with nothing. You can't go to cabinet with an empty hand, with a wish.
I'm glad that we're having this a sober, mature discussion.
In the present situation, I expect a continuation of the chaos.
Join us for the discussion, Mondays to Fridays,
only on WASN,
the content capital.
Is it politics? What is it? Is it that nobody cares about sports?
The kind of support that sport used to get in the past is no longer here.
The thing is, taking a knee doesn't mean that that's the only thing you're doing on it.
Right.
Taking a knee along with other stuff.
Samantha, what are you looking forward to when you return home to Trinidad and Tobago after winning the title?
Thank you very much for speaking it into existence.
Is there no pressure on Nicholas Ball?
It makes me more motivated to work hard and to go out there and rep the white and black.
Why are we sending a team to the Winter Olympics?
There are a number of Trinbagonians who are in the diaspora and have grown up in winter sport. It's an opportunity that the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee will not close the door on.
I also believe in the players that we have. Once you can motivate the players, you can get the best out of them.
This May, the spectacular event you've been waiting for is coming. May 27th, celebrate amazing. North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival. Festival grounds, Blanche shares. Born here, played here.
Welcome back to AM Prime, ladies and gentlemen. This program this morning started off with Mr. Dinesh Rambali, the Member of Parliament for Chaguanas West. He says he's not politicizing this issue and it should not be a political conversation or discussion as it relates to the repatriation of citizens, and he's focused a lot more on children who are stuck in conflict zones, specifically those associated with ISIS. He has indicated his intention to travel to Syria at the end of June to do cross-border verification checks to ensure that those are returning or listed to return are indeed Trinidad and Tobago nationals. He's also raised the issue of the framework that is necessary and something that has not been addressed as yet, whether it be by the Minister of National Security or the Office of the Attorney General, as it relates to repatriating and reintegrating these individuals into society. It's a lot of work and a long process. We were able to speak a bit on the Copyright Collection Committee here in Trinidad and Tobago, and we're sorry we didn't get to have that conversation with them this morning, but a memorandum of understanding, a groundbreaking memorandum of understanding was signed between that organization as well as the Music Society of Jamaica, Music Canada, and the South African counterpart. So it might equal to opportunities in the end, pen to paper. Sometimes does not necessarily mean anything will happen, but we can only hope that benefits are realized. And finally, well, you would have just heard from Mr. Rajiv Dipti, again, the head of the Supermarkets Association of Trinidad and the Caribbean Supermarkets Association. This event, which is due to take place, the Caribbean Food and Beverage Trade Show and Conference event, from Wednesday, June 28th to Saturday, July 1st, 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, today is going to be a good day. You're going to make it a good day. We're only going to live for a good day. Whatever you may face, whatever challenges or obstacles you may encounter, you can conquer it. And for example, I wake up early to come do AM Prime simply because I love it and I want to. And I'm glad that I can start the day with you. Thank you very much for joining me. I'm Keaton Shaw. This is WESN Content Capital. Stay tuned for Talking Point, which will commence from 8 a.m. this morning. But for now, have a great day, and we'll see you again tomorrow morning. Bye-bye.